Well, if you want to know what Joe Biden is all about, all you have to do is watch him. Don't judge Joe by his jumbled words. Judge him by his actions. In fact, let's judge all of each other, everyone, in every situation, not by our words, but who we are, our character, and our actions. And we've been watching Joe. That's what he's asked. He says, watch me. We have been watching him very closely. We've kept track, in fact, of who he's been inviting to the White House, and it's incredibly revealing. You know what? What's more revealing is who he's not inviting to the White House. Sad story we talked about last week here on Primetime. This month, 16-year-old Ralph Yarl was allegedly shot by 84-year-old Andrew Lester after reportedly ringing the wrong doorbell. It's an absolute tragedy that we can all agree on. I told you last week one of the initial facts, which I had understood, that Ralph Yarl was 6 feet tall. I was incorrect. Ralph Yarl was 5'8". But those facts and those characteristics are not what is driving this story. What is driving this story, and what seems important to Joe Biden, and for that matter most in the mainstream media, is that Ralph Yarl is black and Andrew Lester is white. That is important. That is important to the left because it fits into their modern-day race morality play. They have the quote-unquote characters they need to continue to tell the story that divides us by race. They did this before any facts have been confirmed. In fact, the facts are unknowable right now. I know our criminal justice system is guilty until proven innocent, but we here in the media should strive for a somewhat similar standard of not crucifying people in public before we know the facts. But the vast majority have made up their mind. This is yet another example in their minds of how racist white people are out here gunning down African Americans. And they use that as a story to, at a minimum, not just indict the fabric of America, but to roll back gun rights. Joe Biden, he called Ralph Yarl's family, and he invited them to the White House. And good that he did. Good that he did. That family deserves our nation's sympathy, our empathy. Joe Biden then said we all needed to keep up the fight against gun violence. But I told you what's revealing is who Joe Biden doesn't invite to the White House. Here's a story you probably didn't hear. In rural New York, a 20-year-old woman was shot and killed after turning into the wrong driveway. It's very similar, not the exact same details, but similar to what happened to Ralph Yarl. Did that victim's family get invited to the White House? Were they called by the president? There's no indication that that was the case. Why? It's because Kaylin Gillis is white. How about another one? A 6-year-old girl and her parents were shot after the kid's basketball rolled into the neighbor's yard. Stunningly terrible. But you didn't hear about that story. Why? The shooter was black. The victim's white. No call from the president. Last month, a trans lunatic shot up a Christian school in Tennessee. 3 children and 3 adults were murdered. Were any of those families invited to the White House to talk about gun violence? What about the surviving teachers? No. Instead, Joe Biden invited 3 Tennessee lawmakers who invaded the state capitol with a mob of protesters. 2 are black men. Of the Tennessee 3 they've been dubbed. 1 is a white woman. And they have sucked up all of the attention around this story. They earned this moniker, the Tennessee 3. And they didn't let that spotlight go to waste.
And I'm so glad. Oh, I'm so glad. Yes, I'm glad. Oh, I'm glad. Yes, I'm glad. I'm so glad. Yes. 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 I'm so glad.
Biden was honored to have the Tennessee 3 today at the White House.
Well, it's an honor to have you all 3 here. It really is. And you're standing up for our kids. You're standing up for our communities, safe communities, and democratic values. That's what it's all about. And you're all 3 of you speak so well.
Joe Biden isn't worried. He's not worried about the victims of any of these tragic shootings, neither are the Tennessee 3 or the Democrats. Somehow that's evolved into a race story. And so neither any of the Democrats who are calling everyone racist for pointing out the hypocrisy which we have just laid out stark before everyone's eyes. these ghouls don't care about Ralph Yarl or the kids murdered in Tennessee. They just want to cast America once again into this modern American racial drama so that they can then cast themselves as characters in this play as the modern-day freedom riders. If Ralph Yarl was shot by a black man, you would never have heard about this story. The Democrats and media and the politicians would bury it the same way they do every other tragedy, unless they can cast it into this play and reap political gain. Dana Loesch is the nationally syndicated radio host, and she joins us now. You know, Dana, great to have you with us tonight. You look at this and you say, what about Joe Biden's actions, reveal his priorities, and why are these his priorities?
Yeah, and Will, good to see you. Thanks for having me. This whole thing I find so grotesque because when a crime happens, when someone loses their life or someone is assaulted or suffers any kind of injury, you know, great bodily injury or otherwise, it shouldn't come down to whether they were white or black before the President of the United States determines how to react, or whether or not he should pick up a phone or reach out to a community or a family. But sadly, that's how Democrats do politics. You know, you were talking, Will, about the Tennessee Three and the theater that they were engaging in with all of this. The same time that all of this was happening, the same time that they were leading, these lawmakers were leading a riot or insurrection, depending on, you know, how the left characterizes it, into the Capitol there in Tennessee, there was a bill that was coming up that was all about protecting students and student safety in schools. And all three of these Democrats voted against it. They didn't just miss the vote, Will. They all voted against it. And they have the audacity to pretend that they're standing up for students and visiting Joe Biden at the White House, who then the president says that it was an undemocratic thing that was done to them. And he was talking about the Republican legislature, as you talked about, Will, expelling them. The democratic process of going through what they are allowed to do by their state constitution and penalizing these lawmakers through a vote for leading a riot into the Capitol with a bullhorn and disrupting proceedings, that is the very definition of democracy, a democratic process in our republic and in Tennessee's and their state capital. Leading a riot into the Capitol with a bullhorn is not the democratic process that Joe Biden is alluding to. But he has to play to his base. I think that they're ignoring school safety. They're ignoring the mental health issue that really came out of the Covenant School. And you know what? They're sacrificing all of this at the altar of activism. And it's dangerous and it's evil. I think it's absolutely evil.
Yeah, that's the definition of democracy, Dana. And if you boil every story down into nothing more than the characteristics of someone's skin color, that's the definition of racist. Dana, so great to see you tonight. Thank you.
Right.
Hey, it's Will Cain. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Cain podcast for full episodes right now.